Army sergeant kills Black Lives Matter protester. He gets 25 years. Let's put it up full mass, okay? U.S. Army Sergeant Daniel Perry was sentenced to 25 years in prison this month by a Texas judge for killing a protester during the 2020 George Floyd protest, okay? Here's Garrett Foster, right? The George Floyd protester and fatal victim. It's a damn shame, right? Sad, horrific. Daniel Perry was convicted on April 7th of fatally shooting 28-year-old Garrett Foster, shot him 5 times before driving away. His fate was in the hands of District Judge Clifford Brown, who, after hearing the evidence presented, sentenced the 36-year-old to 25 years in prison, which was recommended by the prosecution. Under law, Brown could have sentenced Foster to life if the judge chose. The trial following the murder of Foster, who also served in the military, unthreaded his killer's dark history. The prosecution made Perry out to be a racist and introducing bigoted text messages and social media posts that he either wrote, shared, or liked. The defense said their client is a man that acted in self-defense, suffering from post-traumatic disorder from his time being stationed in Afghanistan and being bullied as a kid. You see, Republican Governor Greg Abbott made public his desire to pardon Perry. We covered that. This is the governor shaking hands with indicted Proud Boy leader Joe Briggs. He gets down with the crew. So remember when we reported on this statement from Abbott? I mean, it was immediate. I mean, the guy couldn't wait to say something after the conviction, right? And he says, hey, I am waiting for the pardon department to put something on my desk about pardoning the man who just got convicted, and the governor obviously not having true details about the crime, right? In Texas, the governor is not allowed to pardon. There's a board. That board, however, can make the recommendation to the governor. The governor can then sign off. So he weighs in. Texas has one of the strongest stand your ground laws. This is Governor Abbott, of self-defense that cannot be nullified by a jury or progressive district attorney. Abbott said in the statement posted to Twitter almost 24 hours after a jury convicted Perry of Foster's murder. I will work as swiftly as Texas law allows regarding the pardon of Sergeant Perry. The push comes from the defendant's accusation that Foster threatened Perry initially. However, witnesses dispute this entire story, saying they did not see Foster raise his gun. News 10 reported. Prosecutors argue Perry could have driven away, but chose not to. They said Perry ran a red light into an area where he could easily see the marchers before he drove into them. The crowd did not swarm him as he suggested. So the witnesses were presented. You know, juries are fact finders of a case. They are the designated fact finders, right? The governor, well, he doesn't like 2 types of individuals. He doesn't like voters and he doesn't like jury members, okay? These things are actually fundamental to the process of our courts and democracy. It remains to be seen if justice will be carried out. So the parole board, they did respond to the governor initially, which is filled with appointees by him, is still considering whether to recommend Perry for a pardon. Oh, they will, which is required under Texas law for the governor to then issue a pardon. Perry's defense team plans to appeal. Isn't that something? So what do we have now? We have an individual who kills a person who's allied with the Black community. No problem. Yeah, we're just gonna make up a bunch of lies and say it was self-defense. Jury looks at the evidence, prosecutor prosecutes. No, this guy actually, the judge actually was sitting as the jury. Judge convicts, says you gotta go to prison, good. They picked judge by jury because they thought that would be a lenient option. He looked at the law. So governor, everybody's wrong on the law? Everybody, but you. All right, Jackson, thoughts?
Well, you know, the only reason, I mean, this is all political. Allowing a man to go to prison or to suffer for taking out violence basically against a political movement and an ideology and a set of ideas would be a blow to the Republican establishment, a blow to Governor Greg Abbott, Not really, but again, just to their ideals and their ideas of what their brand stands for. And a lot of that is protecting Americans' right to self-defense, which typically usually ends up in, some white guy killing some black guy or, something along those lines. But it's also really always frustrating to see when these types of murders happen, when these types of shootings happen, how often these people leave so much evidence of how psychologically sick they are all over the internet, and how preventable so many of these attacks often are. And I think that this is an area where AI technology could really come in handy in terms of, especially since him being a former service member and having a record of mental health issues, just making it easier I mean, how can we not argue to scan people's social media who have weapons of death and destruction when this type of stuff is happening so often? Yeah. So I think that this is an area where AI can really come in handy. Because so often you see these things happen and people leave just mountains of evidence that one day they may have done it.
You're so right on the mountain of evidence. Typically these things take place. We look at historical context and say, we should have saw it coming. But nobody was paying attention. Why?